Hi, this is the second video in the revision playlist on the AQA new specimen papers. It's the level 9 to 1 specification, and this is the higher tier. In the previous video we worked through to question 10, so from this video we're going to work from 11 onwards. I'm going to aim for about 20 to 30 minutes or so, and by the time you've stopped each of the separate questions, had a go at them yourself, hopefully this will be about an hour's worth of revision. Okay, so let's have a look at question 11, which you can download the whole paper from the link below in the description. Okay, so in this particular one, students took a spelling test. The diagram shows information about the scores. Lucy is one of the 29 students in the class. Okay, so what they're asking you to do is to find the median score. Okay, so let's have a look at that. Well, the median, as you probably remember, is the middle value. So in other words, this is the first two students got a score of 3, the next two students got a score of 4, and so on. So actually, to work out the median, the easiest way to do that is to look at the first score. So the median is the first score plus the last score, the 29th person, divided by 2. So that's going to be 1 plus 29 is 30, divided by 2 is 15. So what we're actually saying is that that would be the 15th person, and whatever score they got, that would be the median score. So as I mentioned before, this is the first two people. So they got a score of 3, and then the next two people got a score of 4. So that's 4 people in total. And then we got another 4 people on top of that. So that's going to be 8 people. Now we've got then another 7 people at this point that got a score of 6. So actually the very last person in this group would be the 15th person. So I hope that's okay for you. That's going to be 2 plus 2 is 4, plus another 4 is going to be 8, plus another 7 is going to be 15. So that's going to be this particular person got a score of 6. So Lucy happened to be the same score, so she's actually one of these people within this group, but nevertheless the median score is actually a score of 6. Okay, I hope that's all right for you. Let's now move on to question 12. Now, question 12 is one of those type of questions where they just need you to show something by showing an area of a shape can be made to look like this as an equation. Okay, so let's have a look at that. Hopefully these things are not too bad for you. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to break this down into area A, area B, and area C. Okay, area A, well, we're told in the top text that area A is a square, so that means that the area of A is going to be A plus 3 times A plus 3, because if it's a square, then both sides must be the same. So A is going to be equal to A plus 3 times A plus 3. Okay, and if we work that out, it's we just multiply out the terms, we get x times x, which is x squared plus 6x plus 9, and hopefully you're okay with doing that. It's just a standard quadratic equation. Please do refer to some of the other videos if you're not sure about what I've done there. Let's have a look at then B. Okay, well, B, the area is going to be x plus 3, which is this length along here. This is also going to be x plus 3, and that's multiplied by 3, which is this depth along here. So I'm just going to write that out as 3 times x plus 3. Okay, if I multiply that out, I get 3x plus 9. Okay, hopefully you can see that. 3 times x, and then 3 times 3 is 9. And then area C, finally, which we're also told is a square, well, that's going to be 3 squared, because this is 3, that means that is 3. So 3 times 3, which is equal to 9. Okay, now the reason I've written it like that is because now I can add all of these together to get the overall area, and that's going to be 9, 18, 27 plus 27, 9x, and then plus x squared. So I've actually proven that, or I've shown that the total area of the shape is x squared plus 9x plus 27, which is this area over here. Okay, I hope that's all right for you. There's lots and lots of questions which are similar to these sorts of questions, which I keep seeing in these type of exam papers, so it's well worth practicing. Okay, let's move on then to question 13. Now, question 13 actually spans across 2 pages, and it starts to look at the cosine rule. Okay, hopefully you can see this on the paper, but it asks us to circle the value of cosine 50 degrees to 2 decimal places. Okay, well, as you're aware with cosine, it actually uses something called SOHCAHTOA. Okay, and people hopefully will have come across that. And what we use there was to say this is all about a triangle, and this is the sine rule. Sine is opposite over hypotenuse. Cosine, which is what we're interested in, is adjacent over hypotenuse. So I'm going to underline that little bit because that's what I'm interested in. And then tan is tangent, or tan equals opposite over adjacent. Okay, so they're asking us to circle the value of cosine 50 degrees to 2 decimal places. Okay, well, what is important also is that these rules only apply to right angle triangles. So if we have a look at our triangles here, actually this one and this one are no use to us because they're not right angles. So if we have a look at those triangles, remember I mentioned that cosine equals adjacent over hypotenuse. So basically I'm looking for the cosine of 50 degrees where it gives me the value of the adjacent and the value of the hypotenuse, which is actually this one here. Okay, so this one is no good to me because this is the opposite to 50 degrees, so that's no good to me either, so I'm actually going to lose that one. The one that I'm interested in is this one because this is the adjacent and this is the hypotenuse. So I could actually write the cosine of 50 degrees is equal to the adjacent, 0.64, divided by the hypotenuse, which is 1. Therefore, if we go back to our original question, that's going to be equal to 0.64. So the circle of value, that's going to be this one to 2 decimal places. Okay, I hope that's all right for you. You just need to be aware of using SOHCAHTOA, but also you need to make sure that you're using a right angle triangle. Okay, so we can then use that rule inside in question B. And what it asks us to do is to work out the value of x. Okay, which is this line along here. So what we've worked out already is the cosine of 50 degrees is 0.64. So let's just work that out. So if I write on here the cosine equals the adjacent over the hypotenuse, which is what we knew from before. Well, the adjacent is x, which is the unknown and the bit I'm interested in. The hypotenuse is 4, and we're looking at the cosine of 50 degrees, which is the information we've got there. Okay, so if I now plug in a bit more information into that, I've got 0.64 equals x over 4. Okay, so therefore x must be 0.64 times 4. Okay, and if I just do a little bit of calculation with that, I can just do that underneath. I'm not going to multiply using the decimal point. I'm just going to put the decimal point in afterwards, but that's going to be 256. Okay, now I've moved the decimal point 2 places here, so I'm going to move it 2 places here. So actually x will equal 2.56, and that would be the answer to this particular question. That if I write that as 2.56, I might actually be careful about this, because if I go back to the original question, it asked me to give my answer to one decimal place, and particularly with AQA, it's well worthwhile checking these types of things. They seem to do this quite a lot with this particular board, but actually the answer then would be 2.6 centimeters to one decimal place. And it would be kind of a shame to lose this at the final hurdle and not get the full 2 marks for that. So please always go back to checking the question every time you do that, to make sure that you are clear in the answer. Okay, let's move on then to question 14. So with question 14, we're being asked to look at probability within a particular range. There's a couple of little questions in here. It runs across actually 1 1/3 or 1 1/2 sheets on the actual exam, so we've just got to work through this one. Okay, so the first one is to work out the value of x. Okay, well, as you're aware, the value of any group of probability is 1. So what we're doing here is we're saying that we're picking prime numbers between 300 and 450. So in this particular scenario, all of the prime numbers are between 300 and 400. So therefore, the value of x must be 1 minus the values of all of these added up together. Now, if you add all of those up together, you're going to get 0.8. Okay, that's excluding the x value. So the value of x must be 1 minus 0.8, which equals 0.2. Okay, and that's the answer to this particular question. So I can write x in there as 0.2. Okay, so let's move on then to 14b, and it says work out the probability that the prime number is greater than 390. Okay, I'm just going to move that down slightly so you can see right at the very top of the screen there, the probability of the number between 390 and 420 is 0.16. So between 390 and 420, it's equal to 0.16. That's my probability. In other words, that's 16% of the time, or 16 out of every 100. So out of every 100 numbers that I choose, 16% or 16 times, it's going to be between 390 and 420. Okay, the question is asking us just for the prime numbers that are greater than 390. So I also have to include this class width as well. So numbers between 420 to 450, well, the probability of those is going to be 0.24. Okay, if I add those two together, I get 0.4. So the probability of me getting a number which is greater than 390 is going to be 0.4. Okay, I hope that's all right for you. It's a 1 mark question, and please do make sure that you check every single one with these types of questions. Okay, so the final part of this is going to be 14C, and hopefully you've had a chance to have a go at that one as well. This one's a little bit trickier, a little bit of work through for the 2 marks, and it says there are 4 prime numbers between 300 and 330. Okay, well, if there's 4 prime numbers, that means between 300 and 330 is telling us there is a probability of 0.16. Okay, well, if that equals to 4 numbers, then if you like, that means that therefore each number is 0.04. Okay, I hope that's all right for you. All I've done is I've divided that 4 into 0.16. Pretty much I can use the same sort of reasoning with each of the other class widths and the other groups of numbers. So if I have a look at the next group, I've got between 330 and 360. Okay, well that's 0.24 according to their grouping. So actually, if each of those numbers is 0.04, that must be then there's 6 numbers in there. Up to 390, that's going to be 0.20, so that's going to be 5 numbers. Up to 420, that's 0.16 again, that's 4 numbers. And up to 450, that's going to be 0.24 again, so that's 6 numbers. So if I total all of those up, it basically means that there must be 25 prime numbers between 300 and 450, and that would be the answer to this particular question. So it's just kind of looking at that and saying, well, if 0.16 equals 4 numbers, then each number must have a value of 0.04. Okay, I hope that's been all right for you. Let's move on now to away from this question into question 15. Okay, with question 15, it's just really having confidence with dealing with standard form. So let's have a look at the first one. So what we're saying is that these two numbers in standard form added together will equal that. Okay, well, if that is the case, then it means that a to the power of 4 must be where a equals well, basically 2.4, because 2.4 times 10 to the power of 4, remember that we're kind of adding these things together. So if you kind of ignore those 3 numbers there and look at these 2 at the front here, 2.4 times 10 to the power of 4, which I'm basically suggesting is this value here, well, that would then give you 24000, which is what you need then to add to the 240, which is actually 2.4 times 10 to the power of 2. Okay, let's just look at that. 2.4 times 10 to the power of 2. Well, what I'm going to do is I move the decimal point 2 places. If I move the decimal point 2 places, that's going to give me 240. If I add those 2 numbers together, what I actually get is 24240. I'm sorry about the mistake there. Okay, 24240. So that proves this original information that they've given to me. Okay, so now I need to just take that piece of information and answer the question. And what we're actually saying is, what is the value of 24000, which is a times 10 to the 4, take away 240. And if I do that particular question, I'm going to end up with 23760. Okay, and that would be the answer to the question, except once again with these AQA type questions, give your answer in standard form. So unfortunately, you only get 1 mark for that. You need to convert it to standard form, which is 2.376, and I've moved the decimal point 1, 2, 3, 4 places, so that's going to be times 10 to the power of 4, and that would be my answer to this particular question. Okay, so we're going to carry on for a little bit longer. I'm going to try and make these videos about 20 minutes to half an hour, something like that. So we'll find an appropriate stopping point. But at the moment, let's move on to question 16 and see how we get on with question 16, which is working through angles and straight lines. Okay, so let's have a look at that particular question. Now with this question, you need to really be looking at I think they call them alternate type angles and also parallel angles. So let's just have a look at the question for a minute. It says, show that AB is parallel to CD. So in other words, this line along here, this line is parallel to this line. Okay, so it's a bit like railway tracks. They're both parallel to each other. Well, if it is parallel, then basically what we're saying is that this angle and this angle must be the same as each other. Okay, so what they've done is they've given us a little bit of extra information, but actually really we don't need that so much. Okay, we just need to prove that these two are parallel to each other. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to find out the value of x first. Okay, now if they're the same as each other, it's fine for me to write 2x plus 35 equals 5x minus 85. And what I'm going to put actually is I'm going to put a line in here that if parallel, both angles same. Okay, both angles are the same. Okay, you might want to just make that just a little bit more flowery for this type of answer. It is 4 marks, so it's well worthwhile just making sure that you've got a good level of English when you write these things out. Okay, so let's have a look at that. I've got 2x here and 5x. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to take 2x away from both sides, because if I do that, I then get 3x on this side, and that's pretty good for me. I got 3x minus 85, and that equals 35. Okay, I'm then going to add 85 to both sides. If I add 85, I get 3x equals 120, and that means then the value of x, if I divide by 3, must equal 40 degrees. Okay, so that's great. It's given me that value of x for this angle and for this angle and for this angle. Okay, now if I wanted to, I'm just going to check that. I'm just going to demonstrate that both must be the same. So my check is going to be where angle 2x plus 35 equals 5x minus 85. So I'm just going to plug in the value of x in both of those. So if x equals 40, it goes into here. 2 times x is going to be 80 degrees plus 35. And that's equal to 5 times 40, which is going to be 200, minus 85. And if I pop that into a little bit of mental arithmetic and work it through, then it means that this value will be 115 degrees, which is equal to this value as 115 degrees. And therefore, I've demonstrated that both angles are the same. Okay, I hope that's all right. It's a fairly straightforward 4 marks for that type of question, so well worthwhile having a go. Okay, I think what I'll do is I'm just going to carry on to the next question, which is question 17, and then we'll probably finish at that particular point. So please do stop the video, have a go at question 17 and see if you can work your way through that one. Okay, and what it says is that we've got to complete a task in 15 days. A company needs 4 people, each working for 8 hours per day. All right. What I would do is I would actually stop there, okay, and as I've done with previous type videos in other playlists, is just stop there for a moment and just try and work something out with that bit of information. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to work out the total task time, because I'm going to need this information. All right, so the total task time, well, if it's going to be 4 people each working 8 hours per day, then that means that it must be 32 hours every day. So per day is 32 hours. Okay, and then on top of that, I've then got them working for 15 days. So if I do 32 times 15, I can work that out. Now again, you might do it slightly differently to me, but basically this is the kind of calculations I would tend to use to work these sorts of things out. But either way, what it's telling me is over the 15 days, the company needs 480 hours worth of work over 15 days. Okay, that's actually what they're looking for. Now, how they're going to do that? Well, they're going to propose that 5 people each work for 6 hours per day. Well, if that is the case, then the proposed rate of work is going to be 30 hours per day, because that's going to be 5 people each working for 6 hours, so 30 hours per day. Okay, so let's have a look at that then. So if they need 480 hours and they're going to get 30 hours per day, then that means the total amount of days it's going to take will be 480 divided by 30. And that's a fairly straightforward calculation to do. You can knock off the zeros and you can say I'm going to do 3 into 48, and that's actually going to give you 16. So in other words, for the company to achieve the same level of work, the 480 hours over 15 days that's required, or rather the 480 hours, if they do that at 30 hours per day, rather than taking them 15 days, it's actually going to take them 16 days to complete the task. Okay, so with these types of questions, the easiest way of dealing with them is just work out the total hours that's actually required, the total hours that you can get, and then divide one by the other, and hopefully that'll give you the information. Okay, so usually with these sorts of questions there's an extra 1 mark, okay, if you can just comment on it. So I guess a comment on how my assumption affects your answer to part A, I would say that something like if you know, if one person, if they work at a faster rate, they can finish quicker. Okay, I think that's fairly obvious. Okay, or if a slower rate, then it's just going to take longer. Takes longer. Okay, good. And that's pretty much it for this type of question. Okay, so that's going to take us all the way to the end of question 17. I hope you found this particular process useful. I hope it's been around about an hour for you to complete this whole video, and you've had a good opportunity to have a look through some of the questions for yourself. In the next video, I'm going to again aim for about the same length of time, and we're going to start from question 18 onwards. It does get a little bit more tricky. I hope you found it useful. Please do add a comment below, subscribe to the channel, and I look forward to seeing you inside the next video.